What's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, representing Team King of Games, and I'm going over a really spicy deck recipe that I came up with here in the laboratory. So it's Qliphort True Dracos. I love what the deck does. My main inspiration behind the Qliphort True Dracos was actually a Helix and Carrier themselves. Because of their effects whenever they're tributed, they don't have to be tributed by a Qli. You can read here in the card text. It's just if they're tributed. Just because of that, it inspired me to actually test out True Draco Qlis, because I love what they do. Like, normally, when you're summoning Masterpiece, you're tributing a monster and something else, and I find that tributing these instead of like your Knuckles, it actually gives you more advantage and allows you to apply more pressure, because now when you're summoning your Masterpiece, you can out so many more cards. Like, instead of just popping a monster with the trap, you can now bounce a monster and pop a monster, or you can just pop 2 back rows by tributing him and a spell. It's just like really cool. Like, the nutty combos just with the Qlis themselves help out a lot. In addition to that, Qlis are just a really strong deck. Like, I don't know why people aren't playing Qlis anymore. I wasn't playing Qlis because I just didn't have them. But when I picked it up, I was like, oh my goodness, dude, I cannot wait to do this build. And I also double checked. You know, I always double check my sources and do my research to make sure that the deck that I'm showcasing has not been attempted before. If it has been attempted, what I do is modulate the deck and give it a crazy, you know, spin to make sure that it's just completely original. That's what I pride myself in doing, and also that's the main category and niche that this team falls into: originality and innovation. So without further ado, we're gonna hop right into this deck profile. We're playing 1 copy of Qliphort Scout. This is the card that got hit by by the ban list pretty bad multiple times. They put it to 2, then put it to 1. Scout is just really that good. As his scale, basically pay 800 life points, add a Qli card from deck to hand. He's a normal monster. It's important because you can search him with Summoner's Art. Spoiler alert, I do not have any Summoner's Arts. I looked through all my spare cards and I don't have any. So that's the kind of sad thing about this deck profile, is it doesn't have Summoner's Arts in it. If I had some, I'd probably play 3 Summoner's Arts to search out the Scout and the Monolith. So these are the cards that you want to scale. Qlis are broken down into categories, and the first category I'm showing you are the monsters that you always want as scales. Basically, this guy generates you infinite advantage. During your end phase, you draw cards up to the number of Qli monsters you tributed for tribute summons, which helps out a lot because not only do you tribute summon with your Qlis for your Qlis, but you also play True Dracos, obviously. So you're going to be tribute summoning a lot. And it's infinite because you play Pendulum. So you can always just pimp them back, keep tributing, and draw numerous cards. And even when you're under Demise, you can do the resolution backward. Will Demise discards whatever you have, if you have anything first, and then Monolith kicks in to draw you X amount of cards. It's just insane. So this is powerful under Demise as well, because you basically get to keep a hand and keep your entire field that you set up. I love it a lot. Monolith and Scout, the monsters you always want as your scales. And then the next category of monsters is actually the ones that you want to tribute, basically being the Helix and the Carrier. Broken effects. Helix, the reason why I'm playing him at 3, Carrier honestly does have a better effect when he's tributed, but I play Helix at 3 because he's basically the only other high scale aside from Scout himself. And I do want to be able to Pendulum summon at times because it's very important playing the Qlis, because they actually help you to grind it out, and I get more resources via the Pendulum summoning mechanic, which helps out a lot. So I really love it. I love what they do. You don't always have to play double scale. Sometimes it's just good to have like 1 scale. For example, if you're going to normal summon a Qli at 1800, you can play 1 scale, putting it at 2100, which is pretty cool. Just an example. But Helix, whenever he's tributed, this card's pretty busted. He basically destroys the spell or trap on the field, which actually helps out a lot against Chamber and Trick Stars and a lot of different decks. And you do some nutty combos with this. Like, for example, if you tribute this and you tribute the True Draco Apocalypse, you get to do the same thing it would be as tributing Heritage in Apocalypse. You get to pop a monster and pop a back row, and you can set up your chain links accordingly to where this card can't be striked if you put it as chain link 1, and obviously they can't negate Apocalypse because it's not activating, it's an effect engrave. It's really cool. So Apocalypse would be chain link 2. So you just do some nutty stuff. And then of course Carrier, whenever he's tributed, they don't have to be tributed for the tribute summon of a Qli, just whenever they're tributed. And it's an if effect, so it cannot really miss timing. He targets a monster on the field and returns it to the hand. That's very important because some monsters can't be destroyed. So obviously Apocalypse and Return would be lackluster in destroying that. But this guy helps you to get over it. So if you're trying to get over multiple monsters, you'll obviously tribute your Carrier and also tribute your True Draco Apocalypse to summon your Masterpiece, clearing 2 monsters and then clear a 3rd card with Masterpiece. So having the Qlis, I feel, increases your ceiling because it allows you to out problematic cards easier and a lot more often because you have the True Draco back rows and you have now the Qliphort, the Helix, and the Carrier for your tributes. So it's a lot better to tribute these for your summon of Masterpiece than it is to tribute the Knuckle himself, because he gets no advantage if he's tributed, but these do. So it's pretty cool. It just basically does more than True Dracos could do by themselves. I like it a lot. And that is the category of Qliphort that you want to tribute for your tribute summons. And then the next category, so we'll leave these right here, and I guess we'll just keep the scales here. The next category of Qliphort monsters is going to be the ones that you tribute summon for, and it's literally just 2 Qliphort stealths. I have here Qliphort disc. I have a couple discs. I have all these other Qliphort monsters that I could play. I could play a third Carrier. Cephalopod's not really that good to me. I could play a third Stealth if I want. I can play triple disc. Like literally, I could just do disc turbo. Disc is pretty powerful actually. Like it's a really, really great card. But the play style of the deck, the low monster count of Qliphort, and also playing Demise, disc is kind of like not always good. It's just like sometimes it's good and then sometimes you draw it and it's like, dang, I can't even special summon. So instead we're just playing the 2 stealths, literally just the 2 stealths. And stealth's pretty nice. He has the original effect of all Qliphorts except for the scales. In addition to that, if he's tribute summoned by tributing a Qliphort monster, you can bounce a card that your opponent controls to the hand, and your opponent cannot activate anything in response. So you get rid of the card no matter what. You can't even strike it. It says in its effect that you can't activate anything in response. So in order to deal with him, you would have to warning his summon, basically. So it's pretty nice. Excuse me. Stealth just helps you to get rid of problematic cards. In addition to that, if you tribute Helix and you tribute Carrier to summon Stealth, you're literally clearing 3 cards. You're literally clearing 3 cards. Pop, bounce, bounce, then drop a Masterpiece, or just drop a Knuckles by tributing a True Draco back row. You clear a lot more cards. Basically, playing the Qliphort in True Dracos, you get to clear a lot more problematic cards than you would just in pure True Dracos. Even though True Dracos do pop a lot of cards, they do. Like, just by popping the back rows or diagram, tributing, tributing for tribute summons, you get a lot. And using Apocalypse to pop return, you get to clear a lot of cards, but Qliphort lets you clear even more cards as if the deck needed more removal. It's just like increasing the ceiling and making the deck a lot more powerful and more versatile in the methods of removal that you have, because now you can bounce stuff instead of destroying it, which helps because, like I said, some stuff can't be destroyed and some stuff you just don't want it to hit the grave. So that'll sum up the Qliphort monster lineup. Then for the Dracos, I literally played 3 copies of Clay Matthews and 1 Masterpiece itself. I had debated whether I played 2, but if I played 2, I would have to cut one of the Qliphorts, and I just found that none of the Qliphorts I could really cut. The Qliphorts honestly are the MVPs in this deck. Like, they do so much. The Dracos are nice, though. They really are. I mean, Knuckles puts a lot of pressure on the board. He really does. And Masterpiece is Masterpiece. He's just a really, really strong monster that is better, and it's a lot smarter to drop mid to late game because he's just a monster that normally will stick on the field a couple turns. He's not like an invincible monster that's just never going to die. People always find a way to get over him, but it always costs multiple resources to deal with him. So he's very, very nice. I literally just played the 4 True Dracos. It's my deck, and I chose to play it this way, and you literally recycle all the Draco monsters with your disciples, so it's totally fine. And again, it's more Qliphort based than it is Draco, so no Ignis Heat, no multiple Masterpiece, even though you could do it. 1 Masterpiece works fine. You drop it. If it dies, you just recycle it and drop it again. Just in never-ending Masterpieces. And then for the spells, obviously we're playing 3 copies of Double Ds, 3 Optimus Prime, which makes it 6 Double Ds. It's just really nice having the search power. And it also helps because you can basically, like, for example, if you have set scales, it's going to be really, really cool. Like, having the setup with Double Ds and having the scales for your Qliphorts, it's just a nice setup. It really is. A diagram has its days where it's just really, 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 really broken. And then there's days where it's just like, it's lackluster, it's mediocre, because your opponent Ashes and Ogres and then Cosmic Cyclones. But anyways, moving forward, we're playing 3 copies of Carter Demise. Demise really helps out a lot in this deck. You do play an extremely low monster count. In addition to you playing an extremely low monster count, every single Qliphort is a scale. So if you draw them under Demise, you can just scale it up. So it's really, really good, and it helps out a lot. So as you can imagine, Demise is a lot more powerful now playing the Qliphorts, because if you happen to draw, 1 too many Qliphorts, or if you just draw 1 Qliphort and you don't want to normal summon it, or you've already conducted your normal summon of a True Draco monster and you can't do obviously additional tribute for a Qliphort, you just play it in a scale and you don't lose it. So Demise is just beautiful. I love the way it works in this deck. And it helps you to just get a lot more resources. And because we're playing Qliphorts, sometimes you need the setup for your scale. So it's nice to draw 3 cards. It really is. And then 3 copies of Duality. Duality helps you to set up very well, especially because I don't have Summoner's Arts right now. I'm going to pick them up, and I don't really like to proxy, so I'm not proxying for Summoner's Arts. So Duality helps you to dig deeper into your deck to get to your Scout or to get to your Monolith. Either one of these cards are just so powerful as a scale. They generate so much advantage. It's just broken. In tandem with the Dualities, we're playing 2 copies of Pot of Desires. I did not want to maximize on this card. The one thing it could hurt is if it banishes the 1 Masterpiece. But funny thing, the deck doesn't actually need Masterpiece to win. And most of the time, if I have Desires, I search Masterpiece first. Or sometimes I just hold off on it because I really want to get Masterpiece out of my deck. And if you're in a situation where it's like, this hand is not very playable, I need Desires to make it playable, you play the risk of banishing your 1 Masterpiece. And you're not going to lose just because Masterpiece is gone. You have the Qliphort and you have Knuckles. Trust and believe that True Dracos can play without Masterpiece. He's just one of the most problematic monsters to have in the deck, but you don't need him to win, and it's very, very true. So the 2 Desires. In addition to all the draw power and searching, of course, we're playing the True Draco spells in the form of 2 Heritage. This is a very, very broken spell, especially in the mirror match. And also 2 copies of Disciples. I have 1 shiny Disciples, but I'm playing the commons right now, scrubbing it out. But Disciples is really, really good in this deck. Obviously, because I'm playing the 1 Masterpiece, it helps you out a lot. If your opponent outs the Masterpiece, you just put it back and keep going. So Disciples helps you when you're playing at the time and just going into those grind games. I want this to look a bit more organized. There we go. And obviously for the 1-of spell, we are playing Sacrifice. Solifice. Solifice? That's what it's called, Sacrifice. The Q always looks like an O to me, but it's Sacrifice. This is a pretty broken spell. It's an equip spell. You can only equip it to a Qli monster. It's a great 1-of, and it's also searchable by Scout. The Qli monster gains 300 attack, and it cannot be destroyed by battle. So imagine if you have a 2400 Qliphort monster that's unaffected by monsters that can't be destroyed by battle. It's pretty strong, but most importantly, the Qli monster it is equipped to accounts for 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a Qli monster, which would be Stealth. Or basically, you know, if you're playing like your disc, for example, like if you're playing disc, basically you just tribute 1 Qli to summon your disc. But it's just going to be for stealth in this build. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add any Qli monster from your deck to your hand. So when you play this, it pays for itself automatically. It's a very, very nice 1-of, but since you're not playing pure Qlis, it's really not going to be that great in multiples. And even if I was playing pure Qlis, I'd probably play 1 to 2 of the cards still. So that sums up the spells. It's a heaping pile of spells, but literally every single spell gets you advantage. The Diagram Search, the Terraforming Search, I have nicknames for those. Heritage draws, and it also lets you additional tribute. Disciples recycles and draws. Sacrifice searches. Desires just draws. Duality basically searches. Demise draws. So if you draw any spell in this deck, it's going to be good. Like no spell is bad in this deck. So you're happy with any spell. You get a lot of advantage off your spells. You get a lot of advantage off of your Qli monsters as well. And for the traps, we are playing 3 copies of Solemn Strike, 2 copies of Breakthrough Skill. I like Breakthrough Skill a lot, especially in the Trickstar matchup. Unfortunately, you cannot strike the any of the Trickstar's monsters effects that burn. For example, Licorice or Canadia or Candina, because they don't activate. They're actually ignition / continuous effects. If you don't believe me, you really just have to learn the difference between the 2. But the Trickstar monsters don't activate, so because of that, we really need to break through those hoes and just make them, you know, the whole turn they can't burn you. And this has great synergy from Grave. You can even Diagram pop it if you really just have nothing else to pop, and it has great synergy in Grave. But nonetheless, this helps you in your Trickstar matchup because you break through them during your standby or, you know, during their standby, either or. The entire turn, the effects are negated and they don't activate, so it doesn't really matter that they activate. The point is that they can't burn you for anything. Licorice can't, you know, they can banish your hand, but they can't burn you for like 2856, just try to kill you with burn damage. It basically is like, now you have to have Droll and Lockbird. So Breakthrough Skill increases your ceiling for the Trickstar matchup. I honestly feel that Breakthrough deserves to be played like at this time, you know, in this day of age, because it's always been a great trap. And I feel that Trickstar is making a comeback and having a mass resurgence. You should definitely play Breakthroughs. That's just me, though. I feel like there's no really better out to them if you don't have a Kaiju and you really don't want to play the risk of attacking over them with Honest. It's like sometimes you just don't want to waste too many resources on them. And obviously during the standby, you know, you can't really pop them with the True Draco trap. And if you don't have Masterpiece, you can't really get over them. So Breakthrough just helps a lot because it literally just stops the Licorice from happening, and the whole turn you just take no burn damage basically. And that's my reason for playing Breakthrough. Some idiot really tried to tell me you could strike it. I'm like, dude, you just don't know what you're talking about. You can't strike Licorice's burning effect. It doesn't activate. So that is the reason why I'm playing Breakthroughs. I have thoroughly explained that. I'm not going to continue. 2 copies of True King Return, and also 2 copies of True Draco Apocalypse. If I was not playing the Qlis, I would definitely be playing 3 of each of these, but it's so perfect at 2, in addition to that being so recyclable through your True Draco's disciples or the True Draco Phoenix, that it just works out fine. So you're just playing the 9 traps, and every single trap is good. So if you draw a trap, you're happy. If you draw a spell, you're happy. For the most part, if you draw a if you draw, I was going to say masterpiece. If you draw a monster, you're happy. As you can imagine, this deck just rarely ever bricks. Honestly, the brick hand to me is when you draw like all traps, which rarely happens because you play 9 traps. But other than that, the deck is beautiful. And as far as extra decks go, like you can really go heavy on the rank 6s. There's an once in a blue moon where rank 8 will come up if you overlay your stealth and masterpiece. Never worth it. You can, if you happen to pimp some of these, you can make infinity. A lot of rank 6s, obviously, because your Helix, your Carriers rank 6. Your Helix and your Carriers are level 6s, and your Knuckles is level 6. But I find that it's just a waste of resources to ever overlay with Pendulum monsters because they just don't come back. In addition to that, I would never really overlay with my Knuckles. It's just like not worth it. This is totally like a main deck. But I do play 2 cards in my extra deck. They're the Mrs. Radiance. If I had like better Link monsters for this deck, I'll definitely play it. But we're playing Mrs. Radiance so that you can Pendulum summon for more than 1, basically. So like when you're going into mid to late game and you have the resources and you've been grinding it out, it just helps to be able to Pendulum summon out like 2 of these guys, right? And literally just tribute summon for stealth, or just have them on the field just for the damage. Or you just, like I said, you just tribute them for like Knuckles, Masterpiece, Stealth. It just helps out a lot to be able to Pendulum summon for more than 1. Because for the most part, Pendulum summoning from the hand never really comes up because you play such a low Qliphort monster lineup that you don't really have the resources all the time to go scale. That's 2 Qlis from your hand, and you still have Qlis in your hand. Like, that's just not really going to happen that much. So this is like a mid to late game thing. And honestly, you could just not play an extra deck and you can just play Domain if you want. But that pretty much is it for right now. I'm not sure what I would do with the extra deck. It just never really comes up. And the only card that really comes up that is important to me is Mrs. Radiant. In addition to basically being able to bring it out, it revives Earth monsters. So if there's ever like a situation, if a Qli actually does go to the grave, you can get it back. But for the most part, you just use Mrs. to recycle itself. And I have 2 for the True Dino matchup. So yeah, I know the extra deck seems a little funny, but I have my reasons. And as I explained to you, it's just never really worth it to go into the extra deck. This is totally just a main deck that's extremely powerful. It just gets the job done all by itself. It doesn't really have a bad matchup. Like, it really doesn't. It just needs to get its engine rolling, which is pretty easy. So cards I would add in the deck are obviously 3 Summoner's Art, but I don't have them. But thank you guys so much for watching the deck profile. I think this deck is so crazy and insane. And I think we have definitely done it yet again. We've just made another crazy deck. Like, we don't do that enough. And cards that I would be playing in the deck are definitely Disc, another Masterpiece. I have 3 Discs, and here's all the other clean monsters that I coulda, shoulda, would be playing. But it's just not really like worth it. In the long run, like, I wanted to play 3 Carriers and 3 Helix so bad, but I was like, you know what? Bottom line, if I'm going to cut one, I'm going to cut 1 Carrier because he's a low scale, and you really need to have a decent amount of high and low scales and balance it out. But God bless you guys. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. And y'all stay tuned for another deck profile. We're going over an update for my Herald of Perfection. What is it called? My Herald of Perfection Counter Fairy build. So I'm definitely going to be doing that for one of our subscribers. And we've got some more spice coming to you guys. So thank you so much for watching the video, and y'all have a wonderful day.